Alrighty. I didn't know if I was going to do a video about this, but it's fresh, so I want to strike while the iron's hot, and it deals with a lot of the issues that I'm currently writing about, and so I wanted to make sure that I'm staying on top of it. A coach in a girls' football league, so like a minor football league in southern Alberta, has recently been arrested and charged for taking the wrong kind of pictures. I'm hoping you can read between the lines. We're going to try not to say any of the words that'll get this video taken down or anything like that, because it's an important issue and I think we should talk about it, especially as it comes to technology. Because unlike a lot of the people who do that kind of thing, this guy came at it at a different angle. As opposed to actually getting actual pictures, he used AI to make the pictures of his players that he would then use inappropriately. I mean, making them inappropriate, if we're being real honest. But yeah, it's one of the first instances that I can recall in kind of like media or like news stories and stuff like that of this kind of thing happening. This kind of thing happens tragically all the time. But using AI to facilitate it happening, oh, that's a different thing. That's an entirely different thing, and that's why we need to talk about it. So, I have for a long time, well, not a long time, generative AI pictures have only been out for a while, but like anytime I see one on Twitter or any place where there's comments and stuff like that, especially if it's like uniquely provocative or just kind of weird or perverse or anything like that, and it shows up in a feed, however you're going to do that, I tend to put the same comment underneath it as I do everywhere else, that this is corn by any and every metric we would judge it to be corn, or judge corn to be corn. I hope you understand how we're using that word so that we don't get this video taken down. But yeah, that AI images, when used, when made just to sell a bit or to make a joke or to portray someone as doing something that they would normally not do and all that kind of stuff, that it's essentially corn by any metric we would define corn by, except for probably nudity, and that's the only thing. And I say this all the time. I don't really get much engagement on it, and people really don't see it. A great example. This happened probably a year, maybe 2 years ago. I'm not sure, but there was a picture as soon as we could start generating pictures with ChatGPT and that kind of stuff. There was a picture that was floating around the internet, and it was just weird and wrong. It was President Donald Trump standing behind Kamala Harris as if they were a loving couple announcing their pregnancy, and Kamala had like the baby bump and President Trump's hands were on her baby bump from behind and stuff like that. And like, this is perverse. This is corn. This is political corn. Why are we doing this kind of stuff? And that's what kind of prompted me to start saying this stuff. And I've known it for a while, that that's what these images are, that when you go to this technology to generate the images, what you're doing is the same thing that people do when they go to those sites to get those images. That's the same thing. It's you're not doing anything different, and all the wrongness is surrounded by like the attributes of like trying to seek images of those things, for that kind of stuff. And now that we're starting to see people use it to commit crimes of that kind of nature, that's where we have to really start taking a look at like, well, okay, what are these things allowed to do? What are they capable of doing? Because if there's always ways to jailbreak these, or if there's always ways to make these generative AI services, then you're always going to have this kind of stuff happening. And that's like the base level kind of wrongness, that people are going to make pictures that would never exist, should never exist, and that's a problem, that we need to make it so that people feel safe, that like their likeness is not being used for perverse things. And it's a problem across the board, but there's really no way to stop it if you don't remove the technology. And let's be real clear, they're not going to remove the technology. What we then need to do as a culture is understand how we're going to deal with this at a cultural level, because right now we're at the this is gross, this is wrong, this is perverse stage. We're at the like social inacceptance stage, all the way up here. And what it's going to do is the standards are generally going to degrade until a point where it becomes acceptable. And that's where pastors, especially in the Christian faith, need to be ready for when it degrades down to a point where it's seeking social acceptance, because that's where orthodoxy is maintained or not. Because it's wrong when a coach does this with his players' likenesses so that, he can have perverse pictures, for his personal sin. When everyone consents, though, that's when it's going to be a problem. Because there are veins in Christian theology that allow for this kind of thing between consenting adults, specifically married consenting adults. There is I'm not going to say great book, but it was an informative book at the time by Mark Driscoll called Corn Again Christian. I think it's still free via PDF. You can still probably find it, on the internet. Careful how you Google that. But it talks about that if a husband and wife are doing this kind of thing, that those are redeemed images. And with the advent of AI, since the advent of AI, I've really realized that no, that's not actually, we're wrong about that. That there is nothing redeeming about the practice of literally objectifying someone so that you can have that image for whatever purpose that your heart desires. And now that we have AI with that, it's generating pictures of that person that they didn't even do so that you can have those images for whatever reason you have them, that kind of thing. We're going to run into it as it degrades, as it goes from socially unacceptable, this is wrong, there are obviously right uses for this technology, but this is the wrong, and it just degrades down to, it's right here, this is fine, this is functionally the same as this, but it's fine here, right? That's what we're going to run into as pastors and theologians, is the degradation of social values as new technologies kind of proliferate through society, because this will not be the last time that this kind of thing happens. This is one of the first times, and it's not that he's going to show everyone how to do that. It's that he already has. He's already shown, this is just a way around it. Next time, don't get caught. And then if you are in a place where getting caught doesn't matter anymore, then, it's just basically a hall pass to do this kind of activity, which is why when I see AI generated images trying to make the joke because they're doing something provocative, it's like, yeah, that's all this is. This is corn. This is corn by every metric you would use to define corn. This is corn. What we as Christians and theologians need to do is be able to identify that and call it out as sin ahead of time and not try to justify it in, because all of you have seen what happens when especially these kinds of sins of a sexual nature get green lighted. It gets, it's seen as icky and wrong and sinful and perverse here, and then as the social pressure mounts and as everything kind of congeals as a social zeitgeist, I guess you would call it, as it gets more and more common to see and stuff like that, well, then the standards go down and eventually it's just acceptance. And you can go to an Episcopal church, you can go to a United church, you can go to any church you can find on Sunday that's waving a rainbow flag, and you can see that's how they got there. Because if you look at their historical theological positions, they're not anything that would have supported an acceptance at this level. They'd be up here saying, no, these are sins, these are wrong. But you can go to those churches now and it's full on acceptance. They have stuff like Drag Me to Church, where there's drag shows at church. And that's because it's a general lessening. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts before you get that. And right now with AI, we're here. We are here trying to wrap our minds around how perverseness and technology are working together and are working against culture in general. We're here, and it's going to keep going down. It's going to get greenlit by someone saying, this is wrong, but there are right uses. No, maybe there's not a right use for that. Maybe anytime we go to a machine to give us an image based on our desires that are generally sinful, unless we're, in a redeemed and productive Christian life, that anytime we go to a machine to give us pictures that could not exist or have a very low likelihood of existing ever, based solely on our desires and the technology's capability to give us those, that itself is wrong and that should not happen. Getting us there now is virtually impossible. But seeing the problem is not impossible. What we have to do is reframe and really start the conversation about like trying to understand how this is different from art versus like the corn that it is. Because like art requires a talent within yourself in order to make the image. Like drawing a picture of someone, which can still end up being corn. Drawing a picture requires that talent and requires that kind of like exercise of like being creative, that kind of stuff. Whereas this is just id and desire at the push of a button. Like, I want a picture of name a celebrity doing name a perversion. Press the button and you get it. You get a version of that, and you can keep pressing that until you get the exact version that you had in your head, because you don't need the talent to do that. And so anytime something's going to produce what could be mistaken for art in that vein, at the press of a button without talent, that's what needs to be curtailed and controlled and like demonized, essentially, because all it is, you know, corn without the nudity. There's a thin sliver, I think, of like artistic corn, which still is a problem and still needs to be dealt with, but we don't have that anymore because no one needs to learn how to draw. No one needs to sit down with an artist to try to understand skills so that they can develop their own skills so that they can then go make that stuff. They don't have to anymore. They can just press this button as much as they want until they get the pictures that they want. And that's what we're dealing with. We're going to be dealing with not only the degradation of societal standards with this stuff until it's, something that's almost taught at churches that this is a healthy thing to do. Like big churches especially always tend to do like a week or so of, they're doing a sermon series on, marriage or sex or stuff like that. And they're going to talk about these issues. And where we'll see that degradation happens when pastors like, it's fine because it's both of you and you're just trying to like serve each other. That'll be exactly how this happens. And we need to like get a handle on it before it gets to that point. Or else it's just going to be the green lighting of that stuff in all culture. And we will end up, just like the churches, with rainbow flags, except with, technology and every kind of perverseness that it can, allow for. Because those well-worn steps are exactly what we're following. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, I hope the guy, if he's guilty, is found guilty. Right now he's just charged, and he was found in possession, that kind of stuff. But like, we're moving way too fast in this area, and this is just one more example, and this is one more really poignant example of how Christians need to start applying their theology to technology in realistic ways, not in ways that just allow them to go do the things that other people are doing with the technology, because that will only lead in this. But yeah, it's a strange world we live in, and it's getting a little dark these days. And hopefully, talking about it like this is what's going to start to change that. Hope you guys have a great weekend.